So as birth rates continue to decline in America, the White House is looking into offering $5,000 cash bonuses, expanded access to IVF, along with other incentives for women to have more babies.
Why?
And, okay. I am incredibly insulted by this.
You know, this may be one of the weirdest introductions to any kind of policy discussion I've ever seen, and of course, it comes from the wonderfully oblivious and ridiculous women of The View, who of course have decided that they find it offensive, insulting in Whoopi Goldberg's own words, that the Trump administration would put out a proposal where they're offering to give a $5,000 payment and/or tax credit to new mothers in the United States of America in order to stimulate birth rates across the country. Now, of course, you could disagree with this policy. You could find this policy to be unworkable or unpractical, which, by the way, we will talk about a little later on throughout the course of this video. But the idea that you would be insulted by this proposal is absolutely absurd. Again, the Kamala Harris campaign was proposing an expanded child tax credit. She never said that she was insulted about this. She wanted to do stuff, at least according to her rhetoric, for new mothers across the United States of America. I never saw Whoopi say, oh my God, Kamala's just insulting me. But for whatever reason, this is the appropriate reaction that we have from the women of The View. And the crazy thing is that this isn't even the dumbest reaction. What we ultimately end up figuring out from these women who are well past the childbirthing age, let's make no mistake about that, is that having white children, because of course they made this racial, is actually evil, white, and racist. Now, we're going to get into this. We are going to break this down. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Because clearly they don't know how women's bodies work, and they don't know what it costs to raise a child or just have a child. And $5,000? I don't know what $5,000 is supposed to do.
So Whoopi's objection right here appears to be the idea that $5,000 is nowhere near enough in order to pay for the full cost of raising a child. And all I want to say is congratulations to Whoopi Goldberg and the audience that actually gave this applause and the other dumb women on The View. It was never suggested that this was going to be the full cost of raising a child. The idea that the government should sponsor the full cost of raising a child is ridiculous and absurd. And the crazy thing is that this is actually taken as a serious ding against the policy. And by the way, there are reasons to go against this policy. There are things about it that I do not like. But the idea that, oh, if you offer somebody some money and you try to help them a little bit, it's somehow bad and evil, and eventually we're going to find out racist because you're not helping them all the way, is insane in every possible way. Again, this is the level of political commentary we're getting from ABC's flagship morning news show from all these women, and I'm, let's say, unimpressed.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a deeper problem. We don't have paid family leave in this country. We don't have subsidized childcare. We have the highest maternal mortality rate, and the next, it's 55% higher than the second place. That's a lot for one of the wealthiest country in the world.
So Sarah Haynes makes her case for why she doesn't think this is a particularly good program, and she cites a bunch of different things, and it just shows that she has a complete and utter lack of understanding of the issue that she's talking about. So first and foremost, the United States not having paid family leave or not having subsidized childcare, which by the way, we do, there are a number of programs that subsidize childcare, and by the way, that subsidy for childcare ends up bidding up the cost of childcare, are not reasons why we have low birth rates in the United States of America. And one of the ways that you could tell that that is the case is that nations that do have paid family leave, nations that of course do have government provided childcare for newborns that are in the country, typically have lower birth rates than the United States of America. It is not an exact rule. I'm sure you could find an exception that proves the rule, but if these programs are what led to higher birth rates, we would absolutely be getting killed by the nations in Europe, but the fact is that is not the case. So already she's completely wrong. In addition to that, she cites maternal mortality, says it's the highest in the world. It is not. It is very high among high-income countries, but part of the reasons why it is high among high-income countries is because black women have a higher maternal mortality rate as compared to any other demographic in this nation. And this is because they typically come in more obese than other women. They typically don't show up to prenatal appointments, so they're not taking vitamins, they're not catching problems earlier like other women in this nation. And another factor that drives higher maternal mortality rates in the United States of America is because the United States, compared to other developed countries, has a greater number of women giving birth after the age of 40. And since those are typically higher risk pregnancies, having more of them is going to lead to higher maternal mortality rating. But remember, women giving birth after the age of 40 is a symptom of the problem of low birth rates in the United States of America, because women are waiting well beyond their typical childbearing years in order to give birth in this country. So what Sarah Hines just did was propose two policies that absolutely do not work in raising birth rates. And of course, she addressed a symptom of the problem as somehow a causal factor in said problem.
So it's just not touching the surface on this. But I'm one of those people that I feel that the earth is overpopulated.
So after she proposes a bunch of different left-wing dream policies that, by the way, provably do not raise birth rates, she then, on top of that, misidentifies an effect versus a cause, and then she adds that she doesn't really believe in the world having higher birth rates because she thinks the planet is overpopulated, which just proves that this Sarah Haynes woman is an absolute idiot in every possible way. Again, Malthusian economics has been debunked time and time again, and the basic premise of this, if you guys are confused, is that humans do not just consume, humans also produce. So more population means not only more consumers, but more producers, and this is why all the Malthusian apocalypse, the population bombs, all the different endpoints for all of humanity have been blown by, and we've gone to even higher and higher numbers in terms of world population. And again, I will point out that absent immigration, which by the way is the left's real reason for not wanting birth rates to go up, we are going to see a population decline in the Western world because they are just not having children in these countries. Native-born Europeans and Asians, like in South Korea or Japan, they're not having kids, which means their populations are dying. And by the way, the worst one on the list is South Korea, that has seen an unprecedented collapse in their birth rate.
They want more babies because it affects not only the workforce, but paying into entitlement programs. But what I would say is this is a short, they're missing the greater point. AI is going to be a problem for our entitlement programs way before the birth rate.
What entitlement programs?
So like
the social safety
security.
net.
If you have less people working in the workforce, you have less people paying into a system that eventually has to pay. It's going to bankrupt the social services.
Now look, as you guys can tell by the title and the thumbnail, the point that they're eventually going to land on is that this is evil, white, and racist, and white people having kids in general is kind of evil, white racism. But I just want to pause for a moment and point out that Sunny Hostin has been on The View for years. She also has been on other various news agencies for a very long time, and she's worked in the federal government. And she just said, what entitlement programs? Like, she has no idea what entitlement programs are when she's covered politics on a national level for years. She is confused by it, dumbfounded by it, and I just want people to understand that this is quite literally the level that we're operating at in terms of information from the people who are supposed to present you information about the news. Sunny Hostin is supposed to inform you about national politics, and she's confused by the term entitlement programs. Can we all just understand and acknowledge that that quite literally just happened right there?
The problem here is AI is going to defeat that way before our birth rates are. So they're missing something greater. They have to rework our social system.
Well, they need to tax billionaires for one thing.
That would help.
And corporations.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have some more money to spend.
Now look, I think the NPC meme is a little bit overplayed, but it is kind of funny that the applause line that is a go-to in this particular story is tax the billionaires, tax the rich, tax them. Yeah, go get those richy riches. That will solve all of our problems, even though the issue at hand, again, is birth rates. And I just want to point out that a bunch of different European countries have higher marginal tax rates and lower birth rates than the United States of America. So obviously this is not a solution to that, but Joy Behar feel real good about saying tax billionaire, billionaire bad, even though the lady that's going to go after her is going to talk about how Trump has actually floated taxing millionaires, which, by the way, completely against it. I'm not on board with that. And all these women all of a sudden get a little sketched out about it because they're millionaires.
I actually generally support this policy. That may surprise you guys. The number one concern I hear from young people is that they want to have kids, but they don't think they can afford it. And we could argue over whether it's enough money or not, the $5,000. But both Italy and France do this. You get a one-time payment when you have a child, and what it could go toward.
$5,000. So.
Well, it could go toward the out-of-pocket costs for delivering a child, which ranges between about $1,500 and $3,000. If you put it in a 529 savings account when that child is born, by the time they're 18, you'll have twice that. You'll have about $10,000 based on current market conditions. We also have policies like this in place. We have the child tax credit, which gives you a tax credit back for the number of children you have, and the earned income tax credit. Because of this idea that our social safety net, so Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, rely on the younger population keeping up with the older population so they can pay into it. But here's my caveat. This would need to apply to gay couples, not just to women who have children, and to adoptive parents, not just people who have children naturally.
So I do give this lady credit for pointing out that this is not dissimilar to programs that exist in Italy or France. This is not dissimilar to programs that already exist in the United States of America. And of course, she will go on to point out that if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris put this forward, the women on The View would be celebrating this. But of course, she brings up this other point that is completely irrelevant, which is, oh, it doesn't pay for the whole cost of the child, which again, it's not intended to. If you have some bills, let's say you have a $20,000 bill and you have $5,000, it's better than having not $5,000. And she also says if you can put it in a 529 account, by the time the child is 18, it will reach $10,000. Please, for the love of God, contribute more to those 529 accounts than the initial $5,000 you'll get from the government. It's a tax-free way of saving for your child's tuition. It's an absolutely wonderful perk. If you invested in index funds like an S&P 500 or a total market index fund, you should expect a return of 10% a year. And if you keep adding to it, A, you're not spending money on taxes, and B, your kid won't have to go into crippling debt in order to pay for their student loans if they decide to go to college. So yeah, this is a good idea, but I think she's missing the point that you're supposed to continuously contribute to these types of accounts.
I want to reframe the issue a little bit, because when I look at something like this, these proposals, I want to know why, and I want to know who's making them. And so when I looked into that, they're saying that the U.S. birth rate is declining. However, in 2024, there was a 1% increase in U.S. births. But that increase was with Hispanic mothers and Asian mothers. So they don't seem to be concerned about that increase. They seem to be more concerned about a decrease in other populations.
Say it.
No, I think I said enough.
What's that based on, though?
And so, well, it's just based on a study.
So of course, Sunny Hostin immediately tries to racialize this, and I'm actually shocked that she had the restraint to not say the evil white racism part at the end of this, but of course, her point has no logic at all whatsoever. So she's like, look, there was actually a 1% increase in birth rates last year, but that increase was largely attributed to Hispanic and Asian mothers, and that's when I was like, aha, they're upset about the decrease in other populations, i.e. the white population, and of course, any idea of white people giving more births or having more children is something that this woman is going to find evil, white, and racist. And I will just point out that if you find a certain demographic, a certain population racist for existing, for having more children, then you are in fact the racist. And again, that 1% uptick among Hispanics and Asians does not compensate for the replacement rate issues that we have in the United States of America. In addition to that, if you're looking at native-born populations, and this is a larger problem in Europe versus the United States of America, the native-born population of all races is declining faster than the immigrant population. So saying that a bunch of people who may or may not be here legally are having what could potentially be anchor babies does not actually solve the issue at hand in any meaningful way for me. And again, this is about whether or not we care about our society, we care about our civilization, and one of the ways that you show that your society is good, that you want to move it forward, that you have belief in your nation is by actually replacing your population. Set aside all the problems with entitlement programs and how all these different people are going to advocate for mass migration in order to pay for welfare programs. That is not really the issue at hand. It's whether or not Americans believe that their nation is worth preserving, believe that their nation is worth forwarding into the future. And right now, that belief is at a significant low.
And so the other thing
But have
I
they
will
said that anywhere? I mean, I feel like it have to be fair.
it's just fair to hope. It's just
have they said that this is to target only white families?
Oh, I didn't say that.
You have to read
gave the
between the
stats.
lines.
I just gave the
They're not
stats.
gonna
But
say
it's
it.
about economics. They're wanting people to pay in.
I'm just giving facts. And so also when I think about who's advocating, Project 2025, remember that, which was tied to the Heritage Foundation, the think tank, the think tank that led Project 2025. They open up the Project 2025 before anything else, talking about family issues. The first chapter promises to restore the family as the centerpiece of American life, and the Heritage Foundation in particular has been researching this issue for over 2 years and is preparing to release a report in the coming weeks on how it believes the administration should counter declining birth rates. So I just leave that with all of you.
They're global
because I
declining
think,
birth rates.
Yeah, but I think when we're talking about the United States, we need to think about who's proposing it and why.
So Joy Behar ended up saying white children, and then Sunny Hawson's playing this game where she's like, I didn't say that, I just read the stats, but you did your dumbass aha moment, like this was actually proving anything. And again, I just want to point out that the reason why they're opposed to this program is because of that right there. They don't want more white people to be born because they don't like white people. They are anti-white. This is what is being put forward, again, on ABC's flagship morning show, The View, and we're all supposed to pretend like this is acceptable. Again, if you were to say this about any other group in this country, that you don't want them to have more children, that would be a big problem and you'd be thrown off TV. But here you have multiple people saying that this policy is bad because white people might have more children. Helping out mothers in any way, shape, or form is evil because it could help white mothers have white children, and we know white children are automatically evil, white, and racist. Now, of course, I will point out that one of the downsides of these particular programs that pay people, specifically people in poverty, to have more children, subsidize that, is that we've seen the breakup of the family among lower class people in the United States of America, because if you don't have a man in the home, you actually get more benefits, more from the earned income tax credit, and that leads to a situation where the children that are being born to essentially welfare queens and not ideal circumstances. So it would be interesting if this subsidy could be targeted towards married women, but even if you were to do that, I just want to point out for everybody that we've seen experiments like this in other parts of the world, and it doesn't appear to work. It doesn't appear that a little bit of money is the difference or the make or break between having kids and not having kids. There is a bigger, broader societal problem, a huge issue there that needs to be resolved, and I think that is related to people's feelings about the nation. If people are detached and don't care about the country and don't feel like our civilization is worth preserving and forwarding into the future, they're not going to have kids, and $5,000 here or there is not going to change the math on that. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute madness of the ladies of the View. Till next time.